Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I guess you've been like really busy.
No, I've been working with our security. They identified Bell Canada activity yesterday going on in the neighborhood, and a cruiser out in front, and we were trying to figure out what was going on. They had two big vehicles, and they told me not to answer the telephone because that's how they were trying to check out where I was. Anytime I answer the phone, they know where I am.
Well, they already know. They know where you are.
No, they don't.
They don't? Really? They have all that technology. They can't. Well,
I'm on a farm, 34 acres.
Oh, they're trying to pinpoint exactly.
Yeah.
On the phone. Okay. All right. I get you. Yeah. Rooks begat crooks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. The more I read your articles, I see the allegories everywhere. Like I seen it in The Devil's Advocate.
Yeah.
How they make the devil supposedly makes her cut her hair.
Yeah.
And I seen it in another one. It's another movie. It's called Stepford Wives.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess all the men they basically go to war with the women and get them all like brain chipped to be the way they want them to be. In a sense, but
movies are done basically to back up what the system is trying to promote.
Mm-hmm.
The actors that can't make it on the news shows make it in the movies. Most people think of it as the other way around, that the movies are more important. But in fact, the news programs are the most important.
Yeah.
So the best actors go on the news.
Yeah, another movie I saw too was Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. And
there's a scene in there where he sees this lady and she's like, "Can you come in?" And then they're having sex and she turns into like this demon, and then and while they're having sex, she's like, Gomorrah, Gomorrah, and he pushes her into the fire, and then she basically gets destroyed. And I guess that's the allegory for destroyed demon female.
Yeah.
And and then he says Crom. I guess that's short for Cro-Magnon. And one of the high priestess in there is I forgot his name. He's a black guy, and he's like a high priest from some snake cult. And I guess my friend was telling me he was, I guess, supposed to be the last Atlantean or something like that. I'm not sure. But I was in your article. I was reading. I guess I got to freshen up on my geometry because I was looking at one you said, the Masonic Lozenge.
Lozenge.
Oh, Lozenge.
Yeah. And like in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. You speak it up.
A lozenge is a pill, which basically narrows at both ends, so it goes down easier. That's why they put Hollywood in a place called Los Angeles. Pills that go down easier than the news.
Yeah, and it looks like to me it's the mirrored V, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I guess that's before, and the Masonic square compass is like after or something. Or? Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah. And what did you mean, like in your when you type in WD-40 in DreamWorks?
WD-40 is a spray that unlocks rust.
Yeah, I know I have a bottle.
Yeah. So DreamWorks is basically the same thing. To make things appear natural and work better. So it's like using WD-40.
Mm. And I've seen that you put one article. You said that the like Open Sesame. I mean, Open Say I made, Open We Are Friends, and you said something with Jim Henson. He made Sesame Street, and I think this in the Sesame Street the two E's in there, and that's supposed to be 88 or.
Yeah.
What's the 88? That's another. That's like a.
88 means 8 is the number for man.
Mm-hmm.
88 is a man with a female exterior.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Like Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh. And you put something else in there when you were talking about the president of Mexico, and you put me/9/11. I don't know what that means.
The president of Mexico was the first one to speak to George Bush after the attacks on 9/11. The second one was the governor of New York. Obviously, Pataki and the president of Mexico have something to do with George Bush's control activity. They're the ones that would be basically giving him the reassurances that what he's doing is okay.
Yeah. And I was looking at one article where you went over all the definitions of law, and one particular one I found interesting was the first 5 books of Hebrew, the Hebrew Scriptures, is one of the definitions. And I guess that's the law around your mind, right? The religion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wall. And another thing you said something about to understand what you're to try to understand what you're saying. You said you have to look up Horite pictographs, and I don't know where to go to even find Horite pictographs.
Well, when you find words like that, what you should be doing is look up the definition in dictionaries. Mm-hmm. 2 or 3 different dictionaries or encyclopedias. Okay. And that's where you get your leads. Mm. The word Horite, mm-hmm. because an I can also be an O, mm-hmm. you have in there he root, R-O-O-T. He's the root. So the Horites were the root in the Middle East. So you go and you look and find out exactly what they did. Oh. Yeah. You got to remember that root, because a T can also be an S, since it appears together in the word first, S-T.
Oh, IRS. Wow.
So the phonetic of the word root becomes ruse. Huh. So they're the ones who prepared the trick, the plan for Jerusalem.
Mm. Yeah, I'm looking at all these words too, though. When you said like every word that has the IRS in it as part of the accumulation system, and I'm looking, like you just mentioned, first as IRS, shrine, pilgrims, universe, Raelians.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Anytime you get IRS, that's the leadership bringing you in the wrong direction. Toll gators. Revenue Canada is the name they use for IRS here in Canada. Revenue means, in French, bring it back. Yeah. Venez means bring it on. Revenu, bring it back. So we are in the time of regal or repo man. They're out to bring it all back. All came to us via Marco Polo and China, and now they're bringing it all back. But China got it from India, and India got it from the Himalayas. And the Himalayas got it from Sri Lanka. IRS, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka got it from Antarctica at the Kemp Coast. Empty.
Yeah, one thing I was curious about, you said, since they genetically engineered Cro-Magnon to have, you said, they put like the piggyback on them. Why would they close? If they already did that, why would they close down Japan until the 1800s to do that again?
Cro-Magnon was basically the male slave made to be a servant in Africa. The piggybacking activity didn't happen till much later.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
It's a process that, number one, I put it on today, the belt. Tim Hortons.
Yeah, coffee over there.
Gives you a sandwich called the belt. It's on a, call that bun, like a big donut.
Croissant?
Eh?
Like a croissant or?
No.
Bagel or?
Bagel.
Yeah.
So a belt goes around mountainous areas. But in there it says a belt, bacon, egg, lettuce, tomato. Bacon, Francis Bacon, sets up the New Atlantis, College of 6 Days. The con, he's conducting people. BA basically means male first, because number 2, B is a number 2, A is a number 1, female came first. So here we're putting male first by putting BA instead of AB. So you have a male first, and then it's followed by woman, egg. Simple enough, egg. It's covered in lettuce. Lettuce is a code word for tell us. Communications. Bell in Texas is called Tell Us. Also in British Columbia and Alberta, called Tell Us. Let us tell us. Get the similarity? So that means male, female, communicating back to head office to tell them everything they find out. And then on top is tomato. Tom 8-0. Tom backwards. Mo. M-O-T. French word for word. I am the word. Mo with an I instead of an O. Mitt. Mitt Romney. Father, governor of Michigan. Michigan is shaped like a
mitt.
Mitt.
It's going to turn to the Sea of Michigan instead of the lake. Oh, yeah. I'm always like surprising myself. The words that you just look at, you like mirror them, and it's like other words too. Yeah,
because we've been taught not to question, but to just accept the meanings we were told in school.
Yeah.
And in fact, other people were told a different meaning. Okay, for the same thing. And when they write, they're writing in a coded language to those who are initiated. When you read, you're reading the definition intended to mislead.
Yeah, just the exoteric public. Oh, yeah, I see that. But even the initiated, you said that even there's still another.
Well, there's levels of initiated.
Yeah.
And some just read the phonetics, others read the pictographs. The important thing is syllables, because the syllables, 3 or 4 pictographs together, have a basic meaning. When you read a word, you divide it up into its syllables, find out the key syllable, and search for other words that have the same syllable. That's when you start noticing what the root of that syllable is, what the common denominators are.
Yeah, I do try to do that. Like I see words with similar like syllables. And have you ever tried reading like Egyptian hieroglyphs?
No.
No.
I've looked at them. They are basically pictographs, the same thing as letters. So.
Oh, okay.
They all basically come from similar roots.
Yeah.
Some are simpler than others, and that's why they were accepted by most of the Semite families, and especially the Greeks, following the Punic Wars, basically assembled it into an alphabet.
Yeah,
the Hebrews that used 22 letters, the Greeks use 24, and the Latin is 26. So there are some things that are more precise in the Latin versions than in the Hebrew versions, because they have more letters in order to be more precise.
Yeah,
but 26 means 2 and 6 is an 8. That means it's the end time language, or what they call the universal language. The uni, single, verse, towards, al, female, la.
Yeah, in the movie, it's a fairly recent movie. There's a book. You probably read the book. It's H.G. Wells' The Time Machine.
Yeah.
And they show you the whole, like, how the caste system kind of, like, they show you the people who live on top of the surface, who are just there to get food. They're basically sheep. They're basically just food to supply the people on the bottom. And the people who come and, you know, kill them and capture them are these big brutes. I think they call them Eloi. And I guess that's the elite, because they believe that they should rule through might and all this type of stuff. And then you have another caste, it was just people who, they said they evolved cerebrally, like their brains, they were smarter, and they controlled I guess that's the Neanderthal.
In the end times, once the Earth has been reassembled the way they want it, the situation will look like barbells. Weightlifters, barbells. So you will have a place at the North Pole and a place at the South Pole. At the South Pole, the inside ring is where the Neanderthalers will be, with their computers and all of the things they have collected as far as knowledge is concerned. Then there will be a ring around them of bureaucrats who will, in fact, serve their needs, be the servants of the Neanderthalers, and the messengers to the group on the coast that then travels to the northern area. Again, there you will have 3 castes. You will have the people who are the ones who make contact with the outsiders coming in from Antarctica and passing the message on to the middle class who deal with the upper class. The upper class will be the space travelers who will travel in space to find new places to collect fees and taxes.
Yeah, another scenario they put in the movie, too, is that the moon was basically destroyed and rocks are falling from the moon onto the...
Yeah, well, that's
a possibility that
a possibility if you consider that a laser beam is a focused beam made up of a lot of diffused light coming from different directions and being focused and sent in one direction. Since the moon does not have plates on it, it's a solid piece of rock, it can be focused upon with a laser beam, and I suggest that what we call the northern lights today is just a diffused system that can be focused, and once focused on the moon, or light received from the Hubble telescope focused on the moon will cause it to overheat. Because it has no plates, it will explode.
Yeah, I actually just spoke to a friend of mine. He said that they mentioned something like this too in the Vedic scriptures.
Yeah.
About like basically lights, lasers or something.
Yeah.
Shooting out. And
so by exploding, the pieces of rock will come down on Earth, and as the Earth turns underneath it, it will be basically focusing rocks on that area of the northern hemisphere, which is between the 8th and the 53rd degree.
So they can just do both of these at the same time, right?
They will do 3, and they could do them in any order or all at the same time. 3 phases. The plan is to do 1 before 2020, just so that everybody knows the rules of the game, and it gets them to choose sides. 2020, it says you will see 2020. Yep. Well, if you go to an optometrist, 2020 means you see clearly. The next one is by 2040, and the final one by 2060. So 20 years of reflection and activity in between. So cataclysmic activity, and at the end you've killed billions of people. At 2062 is supposed to be Halley's Comet approaches. Halley is the allegory or symbolism for Hal, the computer who's in charge. At that point, there is no real activity left in the northern hemisphere, but the southern hemisphere gets 1,000 more years. So by 3062, I should say, 1,000 years later, the same thing will have occurred to the southern hemisphere. Then what you will have left is Antarctica and the northern cap. Northern cap is shaped like a hat. Some people describe it as a Russian cap with ear flaps. Other people describe it as Sherlock Holmes' hat with 2 visors, one at the front to keep the rain from falling in the person's face. The other one is to protect Piggy at the back.
Oh, okay.
The French Foreign Legion also wear that kind of protection on the back of their hat. So that gives you a hint as to whose side they're on.
Yeah, I thought that was also interesting too. How he talked about the Louvre Museum. Right? But I thought Louvre was just the past tense of ouvre.
In French, it's pronounced Louvre.
Oh.
You don't pronounce the E.
You know, because I'm so used to speaking Creole, and it's like this. It's like a slang version, I guess.
Yeah.
Louvre
means open, as in open sesame.
Mm-hmm.
That's the cave. That's the place where the thieves reside.
Yeah, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, he said. And I guess the Ali would be the I or the one, or
artificial insemination, artificial intelligence. There is no L.
Yeah.
No L.
And then you have Baba, which is two.
Baba is B-A-B-A, Barbara. And I put on there today Baru or Ubar, place in Oman that disappeared, town that disappeared and was found recently by people in satellites flying, looking down on Earth, noticed that there was a pattern of roads in Oman going nowhere. Mm-hmm. And they sent archaeologists to look at what these roads were going to, and they found that town, Ubar, I think the name is, that had collapsed. An entire colony collapsed underground as the underground structure gave way, which is a hint of things to come. And they've been giving that hint for a year now, talking about bees, colony collapse. Bees are all dying.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about that, like on the...
they're talking about us.
Yeah, I guess that's what it was symbolic for. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Colony collapse and credit crunch. Not an accident. They are two C's. Between two C's. Always important.
That was
John McCain became the candidate for the Republicans, because they could control the election in the way they wanted it, with their man leading the losing team.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, and that reminds me, I watched that movie, also Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah.
You said it was a mirror image of that.
Which one did you watch? The one with...
Not the old... I was going to get the older one. It was the more recent one.
Yeah, you got to watch the old one, because the new one basically loses much of the points. The Sinatra movie is the one that's right on.
Oh, okay. I'll look that up, too. I think it's with Frank Sinatra, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even his name, probably.
Yeah.
Sinatra. Yeah.
His name has the word rat in there.
Yeah. I guess they, like Jack DeMolay and all these guys, the Mole.
Yeah.
These are all, I guess, like almost like in the underground creatures.
Yeah.
And I guess that's, yeah.
Especially people in the media are given names.
Yeah, see all their names. So, like, whenever you read, like...
not their birth name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I notice, like, whenever I read... Say I read, like, an article and you see the guy's name, it's like the name is just so out there. It's just so funny to me, like, these names... All these names have coding in them.
They have a purpose.
Yeah, so that's what the name does. It signifies, it's telling you the purpose of what they're doing. Yeah. What was the whole, what was Zorro? You said Zorro was symbolic.
Ruse.
A ruse?
Zorro, ruse.
Oh. Wow.
And Zorro is a bit of a ruse by itself because all the attention, if you remember correctly, the last movie, the big poster was Zorro, and he was sword fighting with some woman. Zeta Jones, I think it was.
Zeta. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, and everybody's looking at Zorro, and they see a man in a mask. But what they miss is the real point. She's the man in the mask. Her mask is female.
Oh, man. And that's another thing, too, that remind me in the newer version of Manchurian Candidate. One of the senator that was hypnotized, his mother just reminded me of like a hermaphrodite. Just that whole, she controlled, she used her feminine charm, but she was a man. Huh?
Another Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, with that short hair, I was like, oh man. Yeah, and I think that's interesting too. You said the way of St. James is Western Freemasonry.
Yeah, well, James is I am.
James. Oh.
E-C-I-am. E and S at the end. An S can be a letter C or an S or a Z. Z. So it says E-C, and the letter J can be pronounced like an I. I am. Here I am.
So if that's the way of Western Freemasonry, what's Eastern Freemasonry?
Buddhism.
Oh.
The Buddha and Taoism.
So that guy, the Dalai Lama, his name.
The Dalai Lama's whole story is that they find a person whom they say is the reincarnation of Buddha. They're not telling you the entire story.
Genetic engineering. That
they, in fact, used the DNA of the last Buddha to manufacture new kids. And they make maybe a half a dozen. And they put them out in Tibet in different neighborhoods. And then when it comes time to choose a new Buddha, a new Dalai Lama, they interview the half dozen or so. Some may have been killed growing up. And I think at about the age 12 is when they do the interview. And at that stage, they decide who will be the next one. And they say, we chose him because he was the reincarnation of Buddha. But they don't tell you that they all were. Everyone they interviewed, basically, someone had been cloned from the original.
Yeah, I see that. Like, it's interesting to me. I remember I seen one. They have really successful, like, mind control out there in the East. I've seen, like, they have, like, one type of people that, like, they just breathe air. They don't. They say they don't eat food. They just breathe in air and get energy off the sunlight.
Well, the Asian mind was built to be ROM memory.
ROM memory.
Read-only memory. And then they gave them Confucius in order to confuse them.
Yes, confuse us.
He brought the manual. If they were going to be read-only, they had to have a manual. So he brought the manual. Then everybody learns Confucius in school, and then they proceed to do what they're told because that's what they're supposed to do. Whereas the mindset of the Western man was based upon the rooster. Makes a lot of noise, a rooster. Gets chickens in trouble.
And it's a ruse, too?
Yeah, it's got a ruse in it. And what he does is yell, any cock will do. and and along comes the fox to eat the chicken. So the rooster is somebody that doesn't really think things through in much detail, but comes up with concepts because it's random access. And that's because the job in the West was eventually to be space travel, which it has now performed. And if you are a Neanderthaler living in the Moho discontinuity, you can't write a manual on space travel because you don't go there. You've never been out of your hole for thousands of years. So you have to have somebody else who's going to write the book. And that's Western man, is to write the story of space travel, getting to the edges of the solar system, and then sending that information down below. It's done through the award of Nobel Prizes for science, physics. They send their manual, and it gets added to the knowledge that the Neanderthalers have put into their main computers based upon how you can live underground or on the ground, and now they have above ground. There's a fourth one, living in the water, which also is in there.
Yeah, back to the whole, like, you is that also symbolic on Groundhog Day? Is that another meaning?
Well, it's done by Masons, Groundhog Day. If you look at the presentation, it's always guys with top hats, white gloves, tails. So they're all Masons, and they're basically sending out a message to their own people about did the job that had been assigned to them over the winter get done, or do they still have work to do? And obviously this year, since they said still 6 more weeks of winter, it means they haven't done the job they were assigned completely yet and get to work at it. You only have 6 more weeks to finish this off. No holidays, no going on pilgrimages until you're done this job.
Yeah, I just remind me of something. You said between 2 C's. So is that the same concept when you're reading, like, say, a word, like Mecca?
Yeah.
2 C's.
As soon as you have 2 C's, it means this is important. In reality, the 2 C's they are talking about is 1, the Vatican, the Holy See, S-E-E, and number 2, the males that have a female exterior are called the C-S-E-A, because they basically are, A at the end of a word means female, and they are put in different slots to find out things that you cannot see from the outside. Mostly it's spying on their own men, because their men are running companies or the military or government or whatever. They wanted a spy in the bedroom. So they made these women to be the equivalent of arranged marriages in India and arranged marriages by royal families. So now that we're in a democratic world, they have to have somebody who would work their way in to be like a trophy wife for these men. Somebody like a geisha who would have great education, be entertaining for the man when he brings the people home from work, that kind of stuff. Be very up on current activities, but in the bedroom, sex, anything went. And so the man got what he was looking for at home, and he got what he was looking for when he brought his fellow workers to meet his wife or brought her to work. Main model today of the perfect person for that task is Carla Bruni.
Yeah. Like you said,
she's the wife of the current president of France, Sarkozy. Former model, has done an album, things. So she's done an album. One of the songs is about the 40 lovers that she's had. She has taken nude photographs, and they've been leaked out on purpose, so that everybody in France is jealous of who's this Hungarian Frenchman with this beautiful Italian wife. Her name fits the role. Carla, the car, the vehicle.
Yeah.
And Bruni, Brown one. BR1. 2 in 1.
So it's weird because I don't know if you ever heard of Aldous Huxley.
Yeah.
He talked to
Huxley.
He I guess his name is the Two Hexes.
Yeah.
And he goes, he talks. And I read his book and watched the movie based on it, and they talk about this world. It's gonna be all of just everybody's breath for the purpose. And it's so funny because he talks about like it's a world to come, and we've been like that for a long time now.
Before you even got here.
Yeah. So I guess that was his whole trick, right? To make you think it was
make you think it's science fiction.
Yeah.
Because science fiction has now replaced mythology.
Yeah.
As everyday dream world.
Yeah, it does.
But in fact, there is nothing to come. Everything is here. The only thing that is happening is refinement. Getting it really down pat before 2062 or 3062 for the southern hemisphere. They have to get all of the answers down pat because there's no more chance afterwards. The animals in the lab are all going to be destroyed. You can't go back and retest anything. So the Neanderthalers have to make sure they got it perfectly correct.
Yeah, I read you call it the Secret Covenant.
Yeah.
And one of them was saying that the people will not be remembered with creation. This was, I think isn't that the same as the Protocols of Zion?
The Protocols of Zion, from what I remember about it, is a manuscript written for the purpose of creating polarization.
Yeah. 2
teams. It was basically done by Russians. But the word Zion tells you what it's all about.
Yeah, it's the sin and on. It's a deity, the
number 10 in the middle of a Z, Z, and N, which are the same letters. So it means a basic change of direction towards 10. And 10 is the beginning of the perfect slave. My view is that there will be refinements, and there's an 11 to come, there's a 12 to come, there's a 13 to come, and probably a 14 and 15 along the way. Because they're certainly not finished. If you look at Carla Bruni, she may have a female exterior, male interior, and a piggy in the neck. But there's still the job of incorporating the communications device, the lettuce, the telephone, that we now have to put to our ear must at one stage of the game be implanted so that as we hear and as we speak, those communications are done instantaneously.
So we're going to be implanted, you said?
Yeah, communications that we see as a cell phone today will one day be cells.
Yeah, But
inside the body, so that still needs to be done.
Oh, so the whole thing with the VERchip, right? You think that was used to polarize, or?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And the other thing is, man must be triphibian, which basically means must be as comfortable on Earth as in the sea, as in the sky. So there's gadgets where Rocket Man they jumped over some cliff or something, and
I seen one with some.
Yeah, right now it only lasts for a few seconds, but eventually that kind of stuff will last for hours, where you don't use just a car. You know, if you're going out and you want to get somewhere fast, you put on your vest and fly up in the air by yourself. The other thing is you must have gills to go in the water and survive in the water. Originally we had gills, so it can't be much of a problem to get there, since we were a worm that became an eel, that became a reptile, that came out of the water.
So that's like a recessive gene, right?
Yeah. So we'll get that again. So each one of them may be a different number, but we know that the direction in which we're going is a number 8, and each number along the way is a basic step in that direction. Number 1 is a light. Must concentrate on the light. It's French, they call it phare. What do you call those things that you put when you have an accident on the road? You break it.
Flares?
Eh?
Flare?
Flare, yeah. So it's a thing to focus attention upon you as the one responsible for a task. The second number, the number 2, is a symbol of a yoke of oxen, kind of a Y they put around an ox to pull a plow through the field. 3 is basically a hint that the future 8 will have 3 major component parts of Neanderthaler, female and male. A 4 says there's always going to be someone slightly at a distance to receive your communications. Like Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa has 3 peaks, 2 of which are in Tanzania and 1 in Kenya. They're all together, but the border goes through between the peaks. But over on the side in Tanzania, there is Mount Meru, which is basically symbolic of the controlling activity. And number 5 is something like you throw a rope from a ship and tie onto a dock. It looks a little bit in the shape of a cherry with a crossbar on top, so the rope hangs on there. And that's basically the female-male version. And 6 is the original woman, which is shaped like a coiled serpent. Is the symbol for wisdom. The knowledge of things that were of the earth were in the clan mothers in the old days.
Oh, and
7 is an altar. If you put 2 7s back to back, you create basically an altar. That means this is where the changes are coming about. Then you have the 8, which is an original 0 with another 0 placed on top. So second version of the male, Cro-Magnon being the first, Roma being the second. And so number 8 is the model for male, and number 9 was the attempts they made to make other genders. So the 9 is in the shape of an upside-down 6, and it is basically telling you the story of the gay, the lesbian, the cross-gender, were all attempts at ending up with the perfect slave that would report back. In the end, they decided that these are not appropriate, and they have scratched off 9, which they have symbolized by saying Pluto is no longer a planet. So you're left with Goofy, the other dog. And the 8 must be changed, so the second man becomes the 88. New man, but with a totally new outdoor exterior appearance of female.
So, you were telling me, like, in Freemasonry, like, when they have, say you support it, and then, they artificially inseminate, say the person's wife. How would, because Freemasonry, like, at least the
format... It doesn't happen to every Mason. Most Masons wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah. It
only happens to the selected ones.
But to...
The ones they call the elect.
Oh, elect. So, this, when, but this is what they do to introduce it into society, right?
Yeah, they need to make babies, but more important, because they have been making babies all along in nunneries and in royal families, but they need to make babies that can live in democratic societies, because along the way they discovered that democracy is the best control mechanism for slaves. You make people believe they're free, and you don't have to whip them to get them to do things.
Yeah, but and Plato said, Plato brought up democracy too. He said, yeah, they chose democracy, but democracy always ends up going into tyranny.
Turning into what?
Turning into tyranny. It always ends up
turning into. I didn't get the word.
A tyranny. Tyranny.
Yeah, but that's at a time when they can make their own descendants. Now, with the system they have in place, the perfect slave, the 88, will not be able to make their own babies. They'll only be able to artificially inseminate the egg that will come to them in a jar. That's why the Valkyries are separate from the soldiers at the end times, because the Valkyries are the women, and they have gone out on the battlefield to collect the DNA from all the fallen soldiers who were considered to be superior, and have collected their DNA, and at the end times, at Ragnarok, they're supposed to remake all of the fallen soldiers so that they can fight for the end times battle. And they call these people in her jar.
In her
the word
jar.
They use.
So these
basically means DNA in her beaker.
I also know that DNA comes from the word Neand, right?
Yeah.
Backwards.
And it also comes from 1, 2, because A is the first letter, and ND is the end of the word second.
Yeah, and I see that in standard. The word standard is...
The word standard has 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, yeah.
ST from first, ND from second, RD from third.
Yeah, and I noticed they use these. But that's just like Kabbalistic coding. There's other levels of coding too. I see, because it's like different veils of it. But that's
because they deal with so many different groups of people who have different purposes, and they only have one language. They have to give them a code which is specific to their activity. So you can have Caballerian count, and you can have Desdemona pictograph, and you can have Phoenician phonetics, so that you only listen to the sound. And depending on which task you're assigned, they will assign a specific code to you. That's why on Saturday in the newspaper, you have a section that has astrology and bridge and linking all the words in a puzzle by putting circles around letters that match side by side type of thing.
Yeah.
All these things are codes for Masons who read that paper, New York Times. And each one has a different one. So somebody's code may be bridge. Another person's code may be astrology. A third person's code may be the link the numbers type of things. Or figure out which words are printed in this puzzle. And once they have the code, it gives them certain instructions. It may be something they have to do, and it may be which number to pick on the lottery for which day. And that way, they won't win the big prizes, but they win these prizes that make them feel like insiders, where they get $10 or $5 or $80 or whatever, and
that's that whole.
And they can tell their neighbors, "I won again."